Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim, he's Justin. Colorado Rockies Day. This is day 10. We are 10 days into it. Day 10 of the MLB 30 clubs in 30 days preview. And what we did the first 10 days, day 1 we did the Astros, day 2 the Twins, day 3 the Mariners, day 4 the Baltimore Orioles, day 5 representing the priests of America, the San Diego Padres, day 6 the Chicago Cubs, day 7 the 1980 American League champion Kansas City Royals, day 8 the Pittsburgh Pirates, day 9 the Miami Marlins. And that one was long. We did about 42 minutes worth of it. We broke down everything from Hanley Ramirez to their peach cobbler looking uniforms. So that is certainly, you're going to want to go back, go to youtube.com/Mr. Kelstar. One quick announcement before we get to breaking down the Colorado Rockies is that myself and Justin, we're going to be starting a podcast this summer. I'm not sure how we're going to work it yet. I don't think we've figured out all the details, but we've made a website, and Justin, give them some of the information.
A lot of information. We've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time now. The cycle will not be no more. We are breaking up now. We just conjoined into a podcast. We're going to be making the MLB season is just so close, and we just want to make a podcast. Me and Tim talked about that. We just want to be MLB reporters when we grow up. So we're not going to wait any more longer. We're going to get a website going. We got a Twitter right now at MLB Franchise. And we're pretty much going to be breaking down all the latest news. It's just pretty much news about, it's like MLB trade rumors, but we're just going to be blogging about all the latest signings and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we'll also, in addition to what MLB trade rumors does, we're also going to just talk about the games. We're going to recap games if there's a big brawl, if there's a guy who's in a slump, that type of deal. And when Justin says we want to be MLB reporters, believe me, this channel is 100% committed to covering the NBA. We are going to be covering March Madness. I'm trying. I really have tried with the NHL deal. I'm not a big NHL guy, but I'm trying to get Thom to maybe make some videos during the playoffs. I'm sure we will have some coverage. And obviously, you guys know we cover the NFL here, so it's not that we're giving up on anything else, so don't get worried about that. Day 10, the Colorado Rockies, and I mean basically what we want to do is we want to be the best baseball channel around, in addition to what all the other things we do. Colorado Rockies last year, 73-89, they finished 4th in the division, 21 games out of the Diamondbacks. Justin, what did they do in the offseason?
This offseason, they traded away one of the best closer on the catcher on the team, none other than Chris Iannetta to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They got in return Tyler Chatwood. They signed Gorilla Moto, if I'm pronouncing his name, Gorilla Moscosko. I cannot pronounce this guy's name.
Yeah.
Jeremy Guthrie, he's coming over from the Baltimore Orioles. That's pretty much it in their pitching rotation. They got Casey Blake. They got Marco Scudero from the Boston Red Sox. Minor league deal-wise, they got none other than former Philadelphia Philly Jamie Moyer, Chad Tracy's coming over, and Brandon Wood.
Yeah, Chad Tracy, obviously the son of manager Jim Tracy, who reportedly is close to an extension with the team that they've done. They have a handshake agreement, so it's just a matter of filling all the paperwork out, that type of deal. But that he will get an extension. Jamie Moyer, I have somewhat connections to the Moyer Foundation. I've been not that I know anyone in there, but I talk to them frequently. I've kind of supported that charity, and we're working. I mean, I tried to do it last year with Jamie Moyer, but because he was under contract with ESPN, he was not able to do the interview. This year, I sent out an email to his wife and manager again, so we'll see what happens in terms of getting Jamie Moyer on, but we're trying to do that, and hopefully we wish him the best in terms of making this team. Let's go through the projected lineup, so which Jamie Moyer unfortunately is not a part of. Catching-wise, let's start at starting catcher Ramon Hernandez, veteran catcher. He's been around the league with Oakland, San Diego, Baltimore, Cincy. Last year in his first season, or this year will be his first season with the Colorado Rockies. In 91 games last year, he had .282 with 12 home runs and 36 RBIs. So he's actually got some decent pop for a catcher.
Yeah, he's getting up to age. He's also another key accusation that this team acquired this year. Chris Iannetta, he is a beast catcher, but I don't know. I don't really understand why they traded him away. He has a lot more years coming, but with Ramon Hernandez, this guy can give you a lot of pop. 12 home runs, 36 RBIs with a 282 average. Very impressive for, I think, close to a 40-year-old catcher. He's going to be hitting a pretty like a 276 average. I pretty think if he can just repeat what he had last year, this guy is a 280 type of hitter.
Yeah, no question. And then back in, I don't think Ramon Hernandez is like 34, but that is pretty old for a catcher. I don't know, actually, I think he's 36, so he is getting up there in age, but he's still a solid hitter. Backing him up, you have Willen Rosario, who last year in 16 games hit and 54 at-bats, hit 204 with 3 home runs and 80 RBIs. So he showed some decent power, but ultimately was not a very good hitter for them last year. We're going to have to see what comes from this season, and he made some nice plays in the field that I saw. Over at first base, you have the veteran Todd Helton, a guy who's been there for just about forever now, getting up there in age. I believe he's 38 or 39 at this point. Last year, still getting it done, though. 124 games, he hit 302, had 14 home runs and 69 RBIs. The power, I mean, this is once a guy who hit 49 home runs, 42 home runs, 33, 35. I mean, that's back in the days where you're talking about having guys like Larry Walker there. But, I mean, even as recently as like 2005, he's at least hitting 20 home runs. And the power's just steadily going down. The great thing is that his average is going back up. He's had some inconsistent years where he's hit 260, but it's a positive thing and a sign that he still has a couple years left, that he was able to hit over 300 last year. The thing is, the last 2 seasons he's played only 118 games in 2010 and 124 in 2011, so they need him to be out there every day.
Todd Helton has had his fair share of injuries last year. I think he had a back injury, which really sidelined some of his games last year. But this guy is a dangerous bat when it comes if he's healthy. So I really have him as a repeat from last year. If he's healthy, this guy can hit over 20 home runs. So this year, I do have an expectation of him hitting at least 23 to 24 home runs, and he can get the job done. He still has some pop at a very older age, and I think he has a solid 2 or 3 years left for Todd Helton.
I think he's more around the 15 home run area, but if he can hit 300, that's still pretty successful. Backing him up at first base, you have the veteran Jason Giambi, who is really up there in age at this point. I think he's like 40. He's been around the league, obviously began his career with Oakland, spent some time with New York, and been around the league. He's hit over 40 home runs numerous times in his career. I think we kind of know why at this point. But regardless of that, as recently as 2008, he hit 32 home runs. So he's still showing some pop. Last year, he got some extended playing time because of Todd Helton being out. In 64 games last year, he had 260 with 13 home runs and 32 RBIs. So he's really turned out to be a pretty solid guy on the bench.
He's going to be the fill-in for Todd Helton, and I agree with this. Todd Helton has a lot of pop left. Career-wise, 2 more years, maybe a year left. This could be his final year, maybe. He can hit 15 home runs as a bench guy, but he is the type of hitter you want if it's like a game-win situation or a time-run situation if you don't have that power hitter on base.
Over at second base, then, you have Clayton Morrison, you have Marco Scutaro, who was acquired for Clayton Morrison. Scutaro is a natural shortstop, or at least that's what he played the last few years. He's kind of been around the league, but over the past 3 or 4 seasons, he's really turned into one of the more steady shortstops. He's going to give you about 10 home runs, bat 275. So he's a good overall player, and it's an upgrade at second base. I like what they did by adding Marco Scutaro.
I like this move a whole lot. Even though Clayton Morrison was not the most successful pitcher in Colorado, they got Marco Scutaro, who still has a few more years left in him. He's really much of an average type of hitter. He gets off on a hot start, then he has those months where he just plummets a little bit, but he finds his way back up. Last year he hit 299 with 7 home runs, 54 RBIs. This is a solid pickup for the Colorado Rockies.
Backing him up at second base, you have Chris Nelson, a guy who's only about 25 years old, or no, 26 years old, my bad. Last season in 63 games, he hit .250 with 4 home runs and 16 RBIs, so you have a nice backup over there at second base. Now we look over at shortstop, and you have one of the best overall players in the game, and a guy who does not get enough credit. That is Troy Tulowitzki. Last season in only 143 games, and I mean 143 games is a decent number, but that's missing almost 20 games. He had .302 with 30 home runs and 105 RBIs. Had a tremendous season, stole 9 bases, had a slugging percentage of .544, and really the issue for him for a majority of his career, for 3 or 4 out of the 5 seasons he's been in the league, has just been staying on the field. If he can stay on the field, he is a legitimate MVP candidate, and he's going to hit around 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, and even base stealing wise, he's done a lot better in his career. He stole 20 bases in 2009. And he is a really solid filling shortstop. So overall, one of the best guys in the game when he's going, probably one of the top 5 players in the game, and I think probably the best shortstop at this point.
Yeah, dude. This guy had a big improvement from 2010. Last year, he had 30 home runs with 105 RBIs, and this guy is a one hell of a solid hitter. He really brings it every day. But last year, he missed about 20-something games, but that didn't really bring this team down. They almost got close to making the playoffs, but they had that small slump in, I think, September and late August. But Troy Tulowitzki is going to be having the team on his back this year. This guy is going to be improving from here on out, and he is a top contender for that NL MVP.
And what just meant by the contention thing, obviously they finished 21 games out, but they were in contention almost through August, and then they kind of fell off the map with a bad month there. Jonathan Herrera will be his backup at shortstop. Over at third base, you have the veteran Casey Blake. He spent now 3.5 seasons with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last season was really a down year. Played only 63 games, hit .252 with 4 home runs. He's really up there in age at this point, but 2 years ago, he hit .248 with 17 home runs. 3 years ago, he hit .280 with 18 home runs, almost 80 RBIs. So you would like to get that type of production out of Casey Blake this season.
Yeah, Casey Blake, he's up there at age. He could possibly serve as the DH for this team, but as the everyday third base for the squad, he's not going to give you a lot of pop. He did hit 4 home runs last year. That was totally down. And compared to his 2010 campaign with the Los Angeles Dodgers, I have this guy having a solid 7 or 8 home run season. I don't think he has a lot of pop left.
Yeah, and DH and interleague play, obviously, in the National League.
Yeah, I don't really see him as a solid, everyday type of guy. A DH will be if during interleague, you guys know what I mean.
Yeah, backing him up, you have Chris Nelson, an actual second baseman. Last year, he hit .250, 4 home runs, and 16 RBIs. I don't know if he is going to be that guy that can play 2 or 3 times a week, but he's a solid backup. We move now to the outfield, where you have Carlos Gonzalez, Cargo, a guy we also tried to get on the show last year, but obviously with him, for the most part, not even being from America, we just had some issues with his PR people and everything, so this is how it went, or it didn't work out, basically. 2 seasons ago, this guy had one of the best seasons in a long time. He hit .336, 34 home runs, and 117 RBIs. That was after kind of being a failed prospect for Oakland, coming over having one nice season with Colorado. Last year, he went back down to only 127 games because of some injuries, but he's still at .295, close to 30 home runs, and close to 95 RBIs. So, out of Carlos Gonzalez this year, I would expect an average over 300, and the wrist injury was really what killed him last year. I think if you have a wrist injury and you can still hit 26 home runs, I would expect about 30 to 35 home runs and close to 100 RBIs this season. And he can steal almost 25 bases a season, so he is one of the best overall outfielders in the game right now.
I expect exactly what you said, Tim. This guy could be as close to a 40 home run hitter, even though he does play outfield, yes. But he was so close to hitting 40 home runs in 2010. If he's healthy, he is so dangerous. So I do expect the same results as he had last year, but if his wrist is healthy, I can see this guy hitting 37 to close to freaking 40 home runs. This guy really has it.
Backing him up, then you have Tyler Colvin, who was acquired from the Cubs in the offseason for Ian Stewart and Casey Weathers. You also got DJ LeMahieu, or Lamu. DJ Lamont, I don't even know how to say his name, let's be honest here. And 2 draft picks from the Cubs. I really do not understand why the Cubs moved on from him. Before an injury in 2010 that shut his season down where he had a bat hit him, he had not the animal, like he had a piece of a bat shatter and hit him, and it cost him the rest of his season. He had 254 with 20 home runs and 56 RBIs. Last season, obviously, the numbers went down, hit only 150, which is awful, with 6 home runs and 20 RBIs. But I would have thought that this was going to be one of the guys long-term that they would continue to work with. And ultimately, Tyler Colvin was not that guy because they moved on this offseason for Ian Stewart. So, Justin, what do you think?
Tyler Colvin, to be honest with you guys, I don't know a whole lot about Tyler Colvin. When you look at his season last year, 80 games playing with the Chicago Cubs, right?
Yeah.
He's a young outfielder, 6 home runs, 20 RBIs. It's pretty much, he did have a down batting average at 150, but he is a speedy type of outfielder, and he can produce pretty well on the base path, so he's also a kind of guy you really want to use him as like a pinch runner.
Dexter Fowler is their starting center fielder then. He's going to be good for an average around 265 with about 5 home runs and 40 RBIs. And, he's sold 27 bases one year, but the last 2 seasons he's only stolen 13 and 12. So I'd guess around 15 stolen bases for them this season. He's a solid player, nothing to write home about. Backing him up in center field, you have Eric Young Jr., a guy who, the way me and Justin met, was Justin watched our show, and he wanted to come on, and he was telling me to go on Skype all the time, and I'm like, one night, whatever, I'll go on Skype with this kid. And then he told me, I'm going to be getting an interview with Eric Young Jr., which he did. I went on Eric Young Jr.'s Twitter, and he said it, and we sat there for 3 hours waiting for this blank, I'll just say it that way, and we never even heard back from him. But me and Justin kept talking, and that's how this show ended up happening, post-AC era. And Eric Young Jr., career-wise, has not done what he was expected to do. He's not lived up to what his father did. He had 245 basically for the first 3 seasons he's been up, but that's not even a great number because the most games he's played is 77. He's really had a tough go of it over the first couple seasons of his career after some great expectations in the minor leagues, but he has done well in the field.
Yeah, he really pissed me and Tim off when we were trying to get him on for an interview, but, we tried time after time again to try to see if he was still down to do the interview, but we were unsuccessful at that. But Eric Young Jr. has not lived up to a lot of expectations. He does give you a lot of average, though, when he does have time up in the major. 77 games last year, got you 247. He's more of he steals bases pretty much. He's more dangerous. He's not really that everyday type of starter, but he is a type of bench role where you can pinch run. This guy does steal you a decent amount of bases, 27 stolen bases last year. Dexter Fowler, young, talented. This guy played 125 games, 5 home runs, 45 RBIs, 12 stolen bases with a 266 average. I have a repeat of last year. I think he's going to be a pretty decent outfielder for the squad and for the future.
Michael Kadire, one of the other signings in the offseason, coming over after spending his entire career since 2001 in the Minnesota Twins organization. He's a guy that has had some pop. He's been inconsistent with the power numbers because he's hit 32 in certain years, 24, 12 in other years. So, last year he had 20 home runs, the year before he had 14, the year before that he had 32, and the year before that, in 2008, he was injured for most of the season, but he only had 3 home runs. So the power has been somewhat inconsistent. That being said, I do like the addition of Michael Kadire quite a bit out in right field. I think that he is a guy that's going to hit you about 280, get you near 20 home runs if he's able to stay healthy, and he's somewhat of a threat on the base paths. He'll steal about 10 bases for you, give you 80 RBIs. He's had some years where he's gone over 100, but I'm going to go around 80 RBIs. He's a nice overall outfielder. I think someone in the offseason people overrated him and said, he's a super utility guy. No, he's a right fielder. He can play some third base, he can play some first base, but for the most part you're going to see Michael Kadire in right field.
Yeah, Michael Kadire, this guy can give you a lot of pop, 20 home runs this year. I heard some expectations that the Rockies expect out of Kadire. They expect him to hit 30 home runs this year. He can get close to it. I think the closest he's ever gotten he hit 32 home runs in 2009, but as of late, nothing has really connected the dots with this guy. 14 home runs in 2010. Last year he hit 20 home runs. I could see a solid 27 home run season out of him with about 80 or some RBIs. But he was a main contributor to that Twins season, to that Twins team last year. And when he's coming over from the American League to the National League, I think this is a big jump from the first time in his career. We just want to see how well he plays against these National League type of hitters or pitchers.
Well, and it should probably be an improvement because the National League is supposed to be easier than the American League. And then backing him up, you have Tyler Colvin and Charlie Blackmon. Let's look over to the starting rotation now, led by Jorge De La Rosa after they traded away Ubaldo Jimenez last season, mid-season to the Cleveland Indians. Last year, in only 10 starts and 10 overall games because of some injuries, he went 5-2 with a 3.51 ERA, one complete game, and through 59 total innings with a 1.19 WHIP. Opponents hit 222 against him. I like Jorge De La Rosa. I think he's a solid pitcher, but ace material, I don't think he's quite that good.
Yeah, I mean, he has his fair share of injuries over the past couple of seasons, and he just hasn't gotten healthy the past few seasons. Looking at this season, it looks like he's healthy. He said he's ready to come back and play baseball and try to lead this team deep into the playoffs, and he is a big part of that pitching rotation. I mean, he's the leader of that pitching rotation, but he also, sorry for that phone call behind me, but Jorge De La Rosa is going to have to be a main contributor to this team this year.
And then, Justin, you got to help me out this one. And do not take this as I do not know this guy. Do not take this as I haven't watched it, because I have, and I've been really impressed. But how do you say Chassin's first name? I've never gotten that down.
Julius Chassin.
Julius Chassin. Not related to Gustavo Chassin or whatever the hell that guy's name was. That guy was sketchy looking. But regardless, you have Chassin at the number 2 spot. He went 11-14 with a 3.62 ERA last season in 31 games. The season before 9-11 with a 3.28 ERA. And that's why I say you don't look at the record and say, "Oh, he's an all-star caliber pitcher," but he's still only 23 years old, 24 years old now, and he actually is that good. I think that he could be an all-star this season. He threw almost 200 innings last year, had a whip at 1.31. Opponents hit 231 against him, and he even threw 2 complete games. One of those was a shutout. I like a lot of what Chassin has done, and I've seen some impressive things out of him. I've had a lot of Rockies fans on here telling me this guy is going to be a bona fide ace in a few seasons, and we're going to have to see. But I think that he is on pace to be just that.
I wouldn't say an all-star this year. He's going to be obviously an all-star in the near future, obviously. But as of right now, I don't really see him being that type of all-star caliber pitcher. He's a pretty decent, solid number 2 pitcher for this team. Well, I think Jeremy Guthrie, who was a big contributor to that Orioles team last year, should have been the number 2 spot. Chassin could work at the number 2 hold or number 3 hold. So.
And then at the number 3 spot, you have Jeremy Guthrie coming over from the Baltimore Orioles. He spent early in his career with the Cleveland Indians, but never really flourished there. Flourished with the Orioles. For the most part, he's going to give you an ERA under 4, so he's a pretty solid pitcher, and he'll throw you over 200 innings. He threw 200 innings on the dot in 2009, 209.1 in 2010, and in 2011, he threw 208.0, and he'll give you a low whip, too. Ultimately, I think that he's a number 4 starter for most teams, but again, we've said that this rotation has some nice pieces at the top. It probably is lacking an ace. I think that Jeremy Guthrie should have a nice season here. He'll give them 200 innings and probably an ERA around, where would you say, Justin? Like 3.75, somewhere in that area?
Yeah, somewhere in that area. Jeremy Guthrie, when he played for the Baltimore Orioles, that team this guy is he's a great pitcher, no doubt about it. But the Baltimore Orioles lacked in run support for this guy. So that was a big down for Jeremy Guthrie. This guy has a lot of talent, and with him coming over to the Colorado Rockies, who do have a lot of power on this team, Troy Tulowitzki, a 30 home run hitter, Carlos Gonzalez, Michael Kadire, Todd Helton when he's healthy, Ramon Hernandez, he can hit you some home runs and get you some hits. Jeremy Guthrie's not going to have that big of a problem in the National League than he had in the American League with the Baltimore Orioles. So I can see this guy being a 12 to 13 game winner this year with about 9 or 8 losses, maybe 10 losses at worst. So this guy is going to be playing a big role for the Colorado Rockies this year.
And number 3 is obviously an important position in the rotation. At number 4, you have Drew Pomeranz. And Justin, wasn't he acquired in the Ubaldo Jimenez trade?
Now, I'm a big prospect guy, and yes, Drew Pomeranz was acquired in the Ubaldo Jimenez trade, I think, smack dab in the middle of the season last year. Last year, he made, I think, 4 game appearances for the Colorado Rockies. Nothing well, he won 2 games, lost 1, but nothing was really solid out of Drew Pomeranz.
Yeah, 5.40 ERA is not very impressive, regardless of whether you have a winning record or not.
Yeah, this guy is most likely, he's going to be, they expect him to be on the opening day roster, and I don't really see that as of right now. I think there's another prospect down in the minor leagues right now that should be competing for the number 4 hold. But Drew Pomeranz, he has been I think he was like the number 2 or the number 1 prospect in the Cleveland Indians organization. So I do expect this guy to, expect to make the majors somewhat later in the season.
I think he'll be the number 4 starter. And then at number 5, you have Tyler Chatwood, who in one season with the Angels was 6-11 with a 4.75 ERA. Let's look at the bullpen real quick, and then we'll play rapid fire. As your closer, you have Rafael Betancourt, a guy, and as my stats load and my computer continues to get slower and slower, let me open up their top few bullpen guys, and then I will open up one guy for Justin, that is his current favorite player in the MLB. Let's look at a few guys. Josh Outman was a key piece that they acquired that the A's acquired in the Joe Blanton trade, and he looked really solid when he first came up, and then a Tommy John surgery, and just wasn't able to figure it out. But last year he had a 3.70 ERA. I think he'll fit nicely into that bullpen. Esmil Rogers. Last season had a 7.05 ERA. He's been disappointing in his career. 6.05 the season before. You have Matt Belisle, who should be the setup man. He last season went 10-4 with a 3.25 ERA in 74 games. He was a former starter with the Cincinnati Reds, but he's really found himself as a reliever. Rafael Betancourt will slide into the closer's position now that Houston Street's gone. He does not have a ton of experience there. It was 8 out of 12 in saves last year. That's not necessarily great if you project that out, but now that he has a full year and a full offseason to prepare as the closer, he had a 2.89 ERA last year. We'll have to see what he's able to do. And Justin's favorite player of all time, Rex Brothers. In 48 games last year, this guy really got the job done. 40 innings, 1-2 with a 2.88 ERA, my bad. And he really did pretty well. They also reportedly, I believe, signed J.C. Romero to a minor league deal as well, so that's a potential option.
Yeah, I really like this bullpen. This bullpen has a lot of young talent in Rex Brother. I think that's the guy they're going to be roaming around in the future. This guy really has it. He is one of the top prospects in the Rockies organization. I do expect him to be in the bullpen to start the season, and there's a big future ahead of him. So let's run straight into playing some rapid fire. Tim, we're going to go straight into hitting right now. Will Troy Tulo hit 40 home runs this year?
I don't think he's that good. I mean, I think he'll hit about 32.
Let's go over to none other than Cargo. Will he hit 30-plus home runs this year?
Oh, yeah, no question.
Will De La Rosa will he play a full season? Let's just put it at that.
I'm going to say he will this season. I think he does. Or, no, I'll say that he pitches a majority of the season, but most starters are going to miss a few starts here and there.
Alright. 90 games win season for this Colorado Rockies team.
I don't see it, but, I mean, look at what happened last year. Who saw the Diamondbacks? And now the Diamondbacks look like a team that is a contender for the World Series and has gotten very strong. Lay came out of nowhere. I mean, the Giants have such good pitching, but their lineup is just horrendous, even with some of the additions they made last year. Aubrey Hoff, their leading hitter that was on the team the entire year. Obviously, Carlos Beltran came over and he had a nice average. But their leading hitter who was on the team the entire year was Aubrey Hoff, and he was hitting .247. So I don't know. I think that the Rockies can compete for that second-place position, but I think that the Diamondbacks right now are the class of that division. I'm going to put the Rockies at about 80 wins.
Will the Rockies make the playoffs?
No.
And that wraps up Rapid Fire.
And Justin, we'll go with your record prediction for them. Where do you see it?
I see this team. We have a lot of expectations over the past couple of seasons with this team. We always felt that this team with Tulowitzki, Carlos Gonzalez, this team is a solid 85 to 86 win team. But Michael Gutierrez is going to be a big contributor to that outfield. He does bring you a lot of power. If Todd Helton plays a healthy season, that guy is also dangerous. Scudero is going to give you a lot of hits, a great batting average. Casey Blake, that's the only question I really have hitting wise. Is he going to be playing a lot of great defensive baseball? Is he going to hit very, very well? I don't really see it out of Casey Blake. That's why I don't really see him as an everyday third baseman, most likely as a bench type of role. The pitching rotation, there are some questions, Jorge De La Rosa, but I think this team's going to overcome the odds and possibly hit up in second place. The Diamondbacks, I think, are going to win this division this year, but the Colorado Rockies, I think they are really going to contend for that wild card this year with a lot of talent on this roster.
And there is a second wild card in play this year. There's a lot of teams that really are in contention. Cardinals, Braves, Nationals, Marlins, Phillies, Brewers, because I'm just throwing out every team that looks like a contender. Giants, Diamondbacks, because obviously some of those teams are going to win their divisions, but we don't know who at this point. So it's going to be a fun NL year. Tomorrow we will have you the Oakland Athletics Moneyball, or trade your whole team every time you get a good player, which is what it's become with the Oakland A's. But we'll break it all down tomorrow. I'm Timmy's Justin. #Deuces.